It's funny because my dad actually has much worse vision than I do, and he can fire sometimes even better. So go figure. Well, anyway, this is Digital Drive, and we're talking about technology and quite a bit more. So smart glasses are going to be assisting the elderly and the disabled in everyday tasks, according to Gizmag. It's called Adamas, Adamas. Going to be helping the elderly, the disabled, and probably the intoxicated. Gizmag says we've seen various head-mounted wearables such as the Motorola HC1, the Golden Eye, and the AITT system, which are all designed to give industrial workers or military personnel a helping hand in carrying out specialized tasks. But what about the elderly or the disabled that struggle with everyday tasks? That's the niche a pair of smart glasses developed through the Adaptive and Mobile Action Assistance in Daily Living Activities project are intended to fill, otherwise known as Adamas. Now, something that's notable is that you'll notice that we always sort of have our priorities all screwed up, because anytime there's some sort of new technology, anytime there's some sort of new development, it always goes to the military first and then the populace second. You know, it should be the other way around, but for some reason we value our military so much that we're going to give them all the first-hand stuff, and then the populace gets everything second-hand. Kind of weird. Like there's these cool smart glasses, right? And it's like, well, the elderly and disabled, wait out for them. The military, however, they need it immediately. So the military gets all the cool stuff while we're stuck in the past. The Adamas glasses are designed to determine what the wearer is doing, such as cooking a meal, and not only to provide context-appropriate assistance in the form of text, visuals, or avatars on a virtual plane in the wearer's field of view, or FOV, but also react when a mistake is made. The goal is to allow them to continue working on a task while receiving instructions on how to do it better and correct mistakes as they happen. So essentially you have a virtual nagging mother to tell you that you're doing everything wrong and how to do it right. Unlike other smart glasses, such as Google Glass, the Adamas glasses are actually particularly targeted at elderly and disabled people and will ultimately provide directions for basic tasks like how to bake a cake or brew a pot of coffee, as well as more complex tasks such as fixing a bicycle or even perhaps practicing yoga. Now, last I checked, making coffee was not very difficult, so I'm not sure what pot of coffee they're trying to brew with this technology that requires them assistance, or that rather requires that they need assistance, but hey, who knows? The Adamas project is being conducted at the Cluster of Excellence Cognitive Interactive Technology at Bielefeld University in Germany. The group recently received $1.2 million in funding from the German Federal Ministry of Education to further the development of these glasses. In this project, different technologies are being combined, including memory research, eye tracking, and vital parameter measurements such as pulse or heart rate, object and action recognition, as well as augmented reality with modern diagnostics and corrective intervention techniques, explains the SciTech researcher Thomas Schack. Now, of note here is that this is, of course, a application of virtual reality technology, which is, of course, a good thing. You can't have too much virtual reality technology. This being the case, it's interesting to see that the German government, in this case, is using actually virtual reality technology in such a way as to help elderly. Kind of interesting. Now, we already use virtual reality technology in the military here in the States. The F-35 is kind of famous for it, actually. The F-35 fighter jet is actually known as being a very, very bad fighter jet, believe it or not. It's easily beaten by the F-16, according to some studies, or some, not studies, but some practice runs that have been done. The F-35 jet was beaten by the F-16 jet in actually kind of a hilarious show of ineptitude on the side of the F-35, but go figure. The cool thing about the F-35, though, is that it has this helmet that you wear where you can actually see through the cockpit, essentially. So you look through the cockpit and you can see what's beyond it, thanks to cameras being projected into your vision that map themselves, I should say, over what you would normally see. Pilots have described it as disorienting. Some people have received nausea as a result of this, but apparently people are getting used to it. The problem is the cockpit of the F-35 is too small to accommodate it, so when used in a practical application, pilots can't actually turn their heads very much in order to exploit this technology, so it seems like it's actually kind of useless, much like the F-35. But anyway, it's interesting to see this technology being applied in an actual practical way. Unfortunately, it's for the military and not for civilian use, so go figure. Well, these glasses, though, are a different approach to the wearable space, taking a diagnostic system that is usually stationary and making it mobile, while also integrating monitoring technology that enables reaction to and individualized support for the user's actions in real time. This could mean huge things for people who face challenges with everyday tasks, but who want to remain independent as well. So this could be good for people who have, say, maybe dementia of some sort or Alzheimer's or what have you, where this technology can be used in order to help those people to remember everyday tasks and how to perform them well. So very interesting to see. I'm very interested to see how this is going to be panning out as the time goes by. Microsoft, of course, is of note for using augmented reality in an upcoming technology as well. The Microsoft HoloLens is presumably going to be coming out this year alongside Windows 10, which is going to be coming out at the end of the month on the 22nd, I believe. So the end of the month of July, we're going to be almost to January. The end of the month of July, we're going to be seeing Windows 10 rolled out to different machines which are capable of running it. So I'm very excited to see that as well. And I'm going to try to update a machine in real time here on the show just to see how easy it is for not a layman, but for somebody who doesn't have any experience whatsoever really with Windows 10. So we'll see how that goes. It'll be on a touchscreen enabled machine if that makes any difference. And we'll just see how it goes. So installing Windows 10 live on the air, we'll see how that pans out. It shouldn't be too hard actually, because from what I've heard, it's supposed to be really easy. But we'll just have to wait and see. I've seen it installed from a demo disk, but I've never seen it installed from an official upgrade. So it'll be a first possibly for the radio to upgrade a machine live on the air to a separate operating system. So we'll have to see how that goes. Hopefully it's not really embarrassing, and hopefully I don't mess up. So we'll just have to wait and see. Well, David Cameron is the Prime Minister over in the UK, and you would be correct in assuming that I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of any head of government, though, so this is not really any sort of prejudice against Englishmen. It's just that I'm not really a fan of any head of state. I don't like any of them because I don't think that they should be around in the first place. But the United Kingdom's David Cameron wants to ban encryption. Now, encryption, of course, can be used in order to thwart government surveillance, which is a good thing. I don't want the government to surveil me. Hooray. So it's sort of a good thing that I can use encryption in order to stop the government from seeing what I'm doing in my everyday life. And the classic argument is, well, you have nothing to hide, so what do you care? Well, it's true. I actually don't have anything to hide, but even if I did, that's none of your business anyway. Maybe I do have something to hide. I don't want you to see my vast collection of train sets or something that's very embarrassing to me. I don't know. Maybe I do have something to hide that I don't want other people to know. And if I don't want other people to know about it, why should I trust the government with that information? Because the government is kind of notorious for accidentally leaking information anyway, especially when it comes to political opponents. So I do not really trust the government with my information in the first place because I'm given no reason to. I'm given zero reason to trust any government, none whatsoever. When has any government actually done any good in securing the safety of the populace or whatever? I don't trust them. I don't trust any government. That's just how it is. I don't trust the government of the city of Chattanooga, just as a matter of principle. I don't trust the government of Hamilton County, and I definitely don't trust the federal government or the state government or any government. I don't trust any of them because I'm given no reason to. I might trust some of the individuals held within that government, but I certainly do not trust the entity as a whole because, again, I'm given no reason to. Why would I trust that entity when there's no possible way that it could do me any good because all it can do is take money from me in a way which I don't approve of? So obviously, I don't trust any sort of government, any form of government. I don't really trust it. UK Prime Minister David Cameron really hates the internet, though, according to Extreme Tech. He's long been waiting to mention companies like Snapchat and WhatsApp as real security threats to the nation. He's declared a semi-official war on pornography as well, which has, of course, been particularly unsuccessful and has already resulted in countless abuses in the name of conservative prudery and outright censorship as well. Now he's gearing up to begin one of the most fundamental attacks on the internet that it's possible to imagine. He wants to ban encryption. Now, here's something that has to be understood. Encryption is not just used in order to spy on, or rather in order to thwart the government. No, actually, that's only a small part of what encryption is used for. Encryption on the internet is also used to secure, say, your financial information. So your financial information is something you definitely don't want to be thrown out there, especially on an unsecured network like a library or Starbucks or whatever the British equivalent of Starbucks is. You don't want your information thrown out on there. So to keep that from happening, that information is encrypted. It's made so that it can't be read by somebody who doesn't have the key to it, right? It's sort of like a safety deposit box where you have a key and the recipient has a key, but nobody else has a key, presumably. That's how encryption works, and it makes your communications somewhat secure. There's always a way to break encryption. It's just that the layman usually doesn't have access to that sort of methodology, because it usually requires sort of a supercomputer complex, and it takes a while anyway, especially with modern day encryption, like what's it called? Don't you hate it when you lose it? Not PGP, but the other one. There's SHA-2, I think, is one. It's a little bit harder to get into as well. So it's hard to get into this sort of encryption if you're just, say, running a laptop. It's not particularly easy unless you can just guess the key, which is probably somebody's birthday anyway. That being the case, encryption is very important for a safe and secure internet. But David Cameron doesn't appear to really care about that, because he wants a safe and secure country over a safe and secure internet. I think the internet is much more important than a country, because the internet is transcendent of countries, and countries collapse, but the internet really can't. Countries are actually kind of irrelevant thanks to the internet anyway. Nationalities are sort of made irrelevant by the internet, so I don't really put much credence towards nationalities anyway. Why would I? I can communicate with anyone in any way I want to over the internet, regardless of borders, so it seems kind of irrelevant that we have borders anyway. But anyway, now David Cameron and his supporters wouldn't frame it that way, that they want to outright ban encryption, but the exceedingly reasonable sounding question is whether, in Cameron's own words, we want to allow a means of communication between two people, which even in extremis, with a signed warrant from Home Secretary personally, that we cannot read. Well, I would say yes, because there should be communications which are totally safe from the government. This question contains a magic word, the cure-all, that has always been used to break the back of any real surveillance backlash: warrant. That's why you will not find official British sources characterizing this new initiative as ban on encryption. They say they still want you to have the encryption just so long as they can break it whenever they want. So really, if security can be broken at any time, it's not really security, is it? Right? Like, that's the conclusion we can gather. If this security can be broken anytime on a whim by the government, or even on a warrant by the government, then it's not really that secure anyway, is it? So that's the problem that they have over in the UK. The problem that we have here in the States is that the NSA really just doesn't care and will break into your communications anyway. So we have the same problem here, just in a different light. Now, another problem is that this does affect us. You might not think it, but it does. You see, we're communicating with people in the UK all the time, whether you realize it or not. Have you ever gone to a .co.uk website? You might have. Have you ever gone to a .com that was housed in Britain? You may have. It's hard to know. So this encryption then, or lack of, would then mean that your communications with that server in the UK are now very unsecure and can be broken at any time by the British government. Not something you want, especially if there's an open connection, say streaming service, to a server over in the UK. Then if the encryption is broken, then easily information can be taken from your computer across the pipe, so to speak. Although it's not tubes, which is a whole nother issue. But it's easy to break into communications if they're unencrypted. There's all sorts of things that could be done, things I don't even know about. I'm not an expert on internet security, to say the least, but it can be easily ascertained that if there's no security with the form of communications, that it can easily be broken into. Think about a Skype call to somebody who's in the UK. That information can then be easily broken into if there's no encryption, or if it can be easily turned off by the UK government. In practice, this idea would mean that the country would legislate into existence software backdoors, allowing the government to waltz through any commercially available means of encryption. The most obvious problem with this is that such backdoors present additional weaknesses that could be exploited by people other than the government officials themselves. So will the government's own servers be imperfectly encrypted in this way? The fact is, right now, the weakness of our computer security regime is a far larger threat to global and domestic public safety. Hackers are stealing everything from the personal records of government employees to plans for Israeli rocket defense systems, and even more so than that we probably don't even know about at this time. And the Cameron government is looking to create even more points of electronic ingress. This is encryption that protects bank accounts, internet search histories, personal chat logs, all sorts of protected speech. The encryption that allows rights groups to get intelligence out of war-torn countries. It's this encryption that lets journalists protect anonymous sources in the government, which of course the UK government doesn't want to exist anyway, so you can understand their position, although not support it, hopefully. We have a similar problem here in the United States. It's almost a parallel problem. In fact, it's almost exactly the same. It's almost as if the two governments talk to each other, which is actually kind of likely. Here in the States, we have people such as the head of the FBI director, David Comey, or James Comey, somebody Comey, who does not like encryption very much. We also have Secretary Hagel, who also does not like encryption very much. And you have companies such as Google, such as Apple, such as Microsoft, which have been talking about encrypting their communications, its communications, I should say, by default, which of course is a solid option to keep your communications secure, but it makes the government upset. Now, anything that makes the government upset makes me very happy. So if the government is upset, I'm a happy person. Now, the government is upset at this point because communications between companies and between individuals and individuals can be easily had without the prying eyes of the government in place. This is nice. But how long is it going to last? Well, actually, probably forever, just not in the sense that we normally think of. Yeah, maybe the government will decide, hey, you know what? We can actually stop people from communicating in a secure manner if we just pass a bunch of laws, and then people will probably follow them, despite the fact that they're unconstitutional. As of the, referring to the Fourth Amendment, these actually are illegal. So, despite that, people probably don't read the Fourth Amendment anyway, and the Fifth Amendment and the First Amendment. So we'll just sort of ignore those anyway and pass a law saying that if you have a form of communications, it has to be accessed in some way by the government, or else it's invalid and potentially you're a terrorist too, because we don't know. Anyone's a suspected terrorist in this day and age, after all. I'm a terrorist, you're a terrorist, we're all terrorists. Hey, so that being the case, we need to spy on your communications. Now, this is, of course, officially government-sanctioned communications, which are allowed, and all these sorts of things. No, the alternative, of course, is some sort of other network that's totally separate from the main internet that's accessed by folks who want to have their communications secure. We have something similar to that with the Tails operating system. We have something similar to that with the Tor network. We have something similar to that with other networks that maybe I don't even know about, maybe nobody knows about, maybe haven't even been incepted yet. So there are different ways to get around government surveillance that are actually quite easy. It's easier than you might think. Of course, the best way to make sure your communications are utterly secure is to put yourself in a Faraday cage and pass notes that are written in code back and forth. That's really the only totally secure method of communications, and even then there's probably some way to break it. So unfortunately, there's no such thing as complete security. We all knew that anyway, right? Like, we all knew there's no such thing as complete security. They couldn't possibly be. But we can at least make an effort to make ourselves a little bit secure, a little bit more secure than we had been in the past. At this point, the government is an aggressor, you might say. The government is quite belligerent in its efforts to ensure that they have a security monopoly. That's something that is essential to the continued existence of the state, is a monopoly on lots of different things. A monopoly on negotiations with oil companies, a monopoly on negotiations with contractors to build roads, a monopoly on security, a monopoly on defense, a monopoly on all sorts of different things. These are necessary for continued confidence in the state. And of course, the state props these things up with legislation. So we have a situation now where you have the very unlimited government at this point, because it's not very limited in any way, the very unlimited government that is being made larger and larger. And as it gets larger and larger, it's really standing on sort of two little, very wobbly little bony legs. And as more and more fat accumulates in the upper body, the legs will just break and it'll fall over backwards and collapse. This is a good thing, because this means we can have rebuilding, or not rebuilding, in a much better scenario where no government is rebuilt and we don't have one at all. But either way, a collapse is, in the long run, good. Short term, we're going to be seeing problems. Long term, however, there's opportunity. Look at Greece. Right now in Greece, they voted no on a bailout deal from the European Union. Now, this doesn't save them. Unfortunately, the Grecian government is still in debt. But this means now that there's an opportunity to, say, go away from the whole fiat currency nonsense and say, hey, look, we're going to have a currency backed by hard metal, or we're going to have a cryptocurrency, or we're going to have whatever you want. There's opportunity here that didn't exist previously. This opportunity did not exist 3 days ago, 2 days ago, a week ago, a year ago. This opportunity did not exist. Now there's opportunity, thanks to a collapse of the banking system in Greece, although not total. There's not a total collapse of, say, government or banking system in Greece, but there's been a crack in the armor, and this can be exploited to a very positive way. Don't think that we're immune from this, because we're not. It's just that we have the illusion of total security here in the States, so we think that we're invulnerable, but really we're not. This sort of thing could easily happen here in the States. Look at what happened in 2008. Look at what happened in the dot-com bubble in the 90s. Look at the recession that occurred in the mid-50s. All sorts of different things can happen. Of course, look at 1929. All sorts of different things can happen. We are not invulnerable. In fact, we're making ourselves more and more vulnerable with different measures that we keep passing. One way that we can keep ourselves secure, of course, is to invest in local economy and to invest in tangible objects as opposed to pieces of paper that really aren't worth much of anything other than what people say that they're worth, which is actually not a whole lot these days, because I say it's worth nothing. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more, cryptocurrency and quite a bit more.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway, near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Greece's financial minister has resigned after the resounding weekend defeat of a plan to trade more spending cuts for a bailout deal.
A few days ago, Yanis Varoufakis compared Greece's creditors to terrorists. Now he says his presence risks making talks even tougher because he's wound up so many other European ministers. As he quits, Varoufakis saying, "I shall wear the creditors' loathing with pride."
Fox Radio's Simon Owen in Athens. Authorities in Emerald Isle, North Carolina say the deck floor nails gave way Saturday as a family posing for a picture fell at a beachfront home. 24 people were hurt. A resident saying,
"It's horrible. It's a horrible tragedy. It's unfortunate."
5 of those hurt remain hospitalized. And Serena Williams has won a 4th-round match at Wimbledon against her sister Venus, moving her to the quarterfinals. Both are 5-time Wimbledon champs. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown.
Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You know, you have freedom of speech and freedom of the press as long as you're in the United States, and even then, only kind of. If you're in Germany, however, we'll spy on you, and we'll do it with extreme prejudice. So if you are residing in the country of Germany, which I'm not sure what the full and proper name of the German country is right now. I think it's the German Federation, I'm going to say. No, it's the Russian Federation. Well, anyway, if you reside in the former Weimar Republic, then you are probably, if you're a journalist anyway, you've probably been spied on by government agents from the United States. Sorry, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't want them to do it anyway. But the U.S. government allegedly spied on journalists in Germany. Evidence that the U.S. government has spied on German officials is sadly commonplace, according to The Verge, but now it appears that the Obama administration's efforts went beyond government officials. Der Spiegel says that it has filed a criminal complaint with the German Federal Prosecutor's Office, wherein it claims its journalists were the victims of a spying campaign based on documents which it has obtained. At the same time, CNN is also reporting that it has obtained evidence that the U.S. government spied on Der Spiegel. Jake Tapper tells the story of a U.S. official who could have been representing either the CIA or the NSA going to the German government's intelligence coordinator, Gunther Heist, and demanding that he do something about a deputy who is Hans-Josef Vorbeck, who was supposedly leaking information to the press. In response, Heist reportedly traveled to Washington to discuss the alleged leaks with his government, and his government opened a file about U.S. protocols of intercepted communications between Vorbeck and journalists. The incidents took place in 2011, well before the Snowden leaks revealed the existence of the U.S. government spying to the world. Vorbeck was apparently reassigned, though, at The Intercept, and the Intercept is reporting that the alleged reasoning for the reassignment is only now coming to light. Now, we're seeing these reports, unfortunately, that are rather disturbing, to say the least. For some odd reason, if you are not American, rights don't apply to you. That seems to be the way of thinking over with our friends in the government. If you're not American, rights simply don't apply to you. And that does not really sound like it meshes with the ideals of the founding fathers really at all. I mean, really, it's actually kind of the opposite. It's rather that these rights are coming from on high. Rights come from God, and thus shouldn't really be compromised by any government, regardless of whether they're foreign or not. You see, that's kind of the point, is that we hold these rights, we hold these things to be self-evident, regardless of nationality. So really, all people should be treated in an equal way, whether they're American or whether they're not, by the United States government, unless there's a definite proof, or there's suspicion, or there's a warrant out, or something along those lines. Even then, we don't really have jurisdiction. So the problem now arises where we have a government that has gone rogue, might be a strong way to put it, but has gone in a way that is really not respective of any person who is foreign, unfortunately, unless they're acting in the best interests of the United States. We are very much intent on maintaining our, perhaps hegemony would be a strong word, but we're very intent on keeping in place our influence, we'll say, over other countries. If our influence over other countries is compromised, then other countries might perhaps start thinking for themselves, and that would be extremely dangerous. Folks in other countries thinking for themselves might be extremely dangerous, because then it might lead to anti-Western sentiment, which is also very dangerous. How dare they think for themselves? So we have to maintain a superiority over these countries, especially in the mind of the people. You see, if especially people in the United States think that we're better than everyone else, then we'll definitely, it'll actually come to pass. You know, if we think that we're all better, then it must be so. If we think it, then it must be so. A German journalist who spoke to CNN about the story was understandably outraged, saying the freedom of the press is constitutional not only in the United States, but also in Germany. But a press which must fear the surveillance of research is no longer a free press. And that's something that must also be understood. And he's pointing out something that's very important, is that if we are under the threat or the presumed threat of surveillance, then free speech is being stifled. That's how it has to be. That's probably actually half of the equation in implementing these different spy programs, is if we believe that our communications can be spied on by the government, then we're less likely to speak freely. So even a FBI presence at a protest is, in a sense, a stifling of free speech, because it gives you the presumption that everything you say is going to be monitored in some way, which is, of course, stifling of free speech. It's a First Amendment violation by the feds. Again, nothing new. The German journalist who spoke to CNN about the story was pretty outraged, saying, in response to the story, a spokesperson for the U.S. National Security Council did not deny the facts that CNN presented, but added that the United States does not collect intelligence for the purpose of suppressing or burdening criticism or dissent. Oh, well, that's okay then. So long as it's done for a purpose that is not burdening criticism or dissent, then it's all okay. We'll violate your rights, but we don't have the intent to, so it's okay. Oh, now I see. The Associated Press reports that Der Spiegel's lawsuit is directed against unknown persons and aims to uncover more information about precisely who was spying on its journalists. Now, say what you will about modern journalism here in the States and abroad. If you threaten journalists, other journalists get very upset, and understandably. You can be a commie journalist, and I don't care. You have a right to say what you're going to say. And I'm very much a proponent of that idea. You can say what you want to say. You can print what you want to print. And you're free to do that. You can do that, so long as it's not libelous, obviously. But then again, you can be sued for that. So that's a little bit different, of course. But we're talking about freedom of speech here, right? We're talking about what you can and can't say, which is actually quite a lot that you can say, especially if it's critical of the government, because the freedom of the press is necessary for a free populace, obviously, right? So if the free press is in being stifled, then it's really not a free press anymore, is it? If people who are members of these free presses are being surveilled upon and are afraid to say what they want to say, then they're really not free anymore, are they? It's an illusion of freedom. As long as we keep telling you that you're free, then you are, right? As long as we say it, then it's true. And we keep seeing that more and more as time goes by here in this country and other countries, where as long as we say it, then it's true. We're the freest place ever. As long as we say it, then it's true. You are totally safe thanks to us. As long as we say it, then it's true. Or our economy is the strongest in the world. As long as we say that, then it's true, right? It's perception is reality is the idea that folks are trying to push. And it's really not working out too much, because people are realizing that, hey, guess what? The government kind of lies about things, and I can get my news from sources which are not quite mainstream. So why should I bother with listening to the CIA's official report or the FBI's official report when I can see tweets from people who are live on the ground, right? It makes more sense that way. This is, of course, extremely threatening to any sort of government if it wants to maintain its hegemony, or sorry, that's a strong word, isn't it? If it wants to maintain its influence. And so it has to stifle these thoughts, these evil thoughts that perhaps the government is not so great. We have to stifle that, because if they think that they might not be so great, then the country will cease being great, right? If we cease to believe that it is, then it will stop being so. Well, the U.S. is actually streaming nearly twice as much this year in music, oddly enough. So the United States has upped the streaming game, not the government, of course, but the people have upped the streaming game, nearly twice as many songs this year now. Apple Music comes at a pretty critical time, when people in the U.S. streamed nearly twice as much music during the first half of 2015 than they did during the same period a year ago, while digital song sales have dropped over 10%, according to Billboard's report on the latest Nielsen stats, which don't really mean much to me anyway. In total, Nielsen measured at a 92% jump up to 135.2 billion streamed songs. So it's the latest sign that digital downloads are kind of like the CD, slowly on their way out, while streaming is quickly becoming the new way to acquire and listen to music. So physical media is sort of going the way of the dinosaur, and so is direct downloaded media, sort of going the way of the dinosaur. That having been said, buying singles and albums, according to The Verge, is not dead, and the industry is likely still making far more money there. Nielsen measured 160 million digital song downloads and 116.1 million total album sales for the first half of the year. Those are big figures, especially when you consider that those billions of streamed songs bring in a small fraction of the money that even a single track sale does. As you could probably guess, Taylor Swift came out on top on album sales followed by Drake. I don't listen to either one, so I can't speak to the quality of those albums, but hey, I mean, if people like it, then it must be pretty good, right? What's really interesting about Nielsen's measured streaming rise is that it isn't all audio. In fact, the biggest leap was in video, a 109% increase up to 76.6 billion streams, more than half of the total figure. It's not stated where people are doing all of that streaming, but the music video is clearly still very much a thing online. Mark Ronson's Uptown Funk reportedly saw 109.9 million audio streams versus 258.1 million video streams. If anything, that sounds like good news for YouTube, if not also streaming services like Apple Music that include music videos as well. So YouTube may be losing its grasp perhaps on the music video scene. I kind of doubt it, actually, at least for now. Certainly market trends could change, but right now it looks like YouTube isn't really going anywhere. So don't worry if you work for YouTube. Probably not much is going to be happening in terms of that, at least in the near future, in the next month or so. But the internet is a fickle thing. Look at how Snapchat just exploded out of nowhere. And I like hadn't even heard of Snapchat last year, and then suddenly it just exploded and everyone uses it. So we're seeing stuff like that all the time now, where different things are just exploding out of nowhere and is from some startup somewhere, and it gets sold off for a few $1 billion, and that's the end of it. So we keep seeing stuff like that. The market is very, very interesting on the internet because things can change in a way that is wholly unexpected and would never, ever happen in the real world. But the internet makes it happen. The internet makes very, very odd and sometimes impossible things in the real world happen. Have you heard of Pirate Bay? The Pirate Bay was a torrenting website where you could download torrents in order to download music files, video files, any files you want. Well, the Pirate Bay founders say that the FBI has the Prenda law under investigation. So Sund and Niej were questioned about Prenda while in prison. A federal judge referred to the lawyers behind the Prenda law copyright trolling scheme to investigators in 2013. Since then, there's been no indication of what stage an investigation is at or if it's happening at all. Now, two co-founders of the Pirate Bay have said, according to Ars Technica, that they have reason to believe that an investigation is now underway. Peter Sund and Fredrik Niej each independently told website Torrent Freak that Swedish authorities questioned them during their recent imprisonment. The Prenda law strategy was to sue large numbers of internet users for downloading pornography and then settle fast for several $1,000s. The scheme netted millions over the years, but it was shut down in 2013 after sanctions from the U.S. District Judge Otis Wright. Other judges have punished Prenda since then, and harsh results were appealed, but to no avail. One of the more serious allegations against Prenda was that the pirated material had actually been planted on the Pirate Bay as a kind of honeypot. The honeypot theory would obliterate any right to enforce copyright since they had initiated the sharing in the first place. Prenda wasn't protecting other people's pornography. The copyright troll had essentially become its own client. So what happened was they would create the problem and then the solution at the same time, which leads to problems, to put it lightly. If you create the problem and the solution and then sue people for engaging in your scheme, then it seems like you're creating your own clientele and then punishing them for being your own clientele, which leads to, well, dishonest business practices, to say the least. The Pirate Bay provided records that they believe showed the honeypot theory was true, and that's what police questioning was about. An expert hired by defense lawyers connected a Pirate Bay account called Shark MP4 to Prenda mastermind John Steele, but Steele denied involvement. The Pirate Bay founder's statements were published today, suggest that it's a trail that the FBI is trying to retrace, saying, I was told that Prenda law has been under investigation for over a year, and from the printouts they showed me, I believe that. Peter Sund told TorrentFreak.com, saying, they asked many questions about the Pirate Bay backups and logs. I told them that even if they had one of the backups, that it would be nearly impossible to decrypt. And that's where strong encryption comes in as well, by the way, where encryption is a very necessary thing for security, even if it does sometimes protect criminals. That's the thing. It's an equal rights sort of thing, where I have a right to encryption just as a criminal does. And if they want to decrypt it, then they have to get the key, and good luck getting it. There are consequences to strong encryption, that's for sure, but it's really worth it in the end. That's the thing. People talk all the time about how, well, we can use it to stop criminals, but you're sacrificing liberty for security, and that's something which should never happen. And for some reason, people are so keen to do that here, especially in this country and especially in other countries such as in the European Union, where people do it all the time. It's very, very odd. Niej added, they wanted to know if I could verify the accuracy of the IP address logs, how they were stored, and how they could be retrieved, he added. Neither Niej nor Sund could help with the request since they no longer run the website. The officers also asked about just who is running the Pirate Bay these days, so it's not clear what the real motive of the questioning was. Both men were interviewed by Swedish police, but the Swedish officers said that they were sent on behalf of the FBI. Niej flouted a Swedish arrest warrant that was arrested near the Thai-Laos border in 2014. He served 2/3 of a 10-month prison term and then was released last month. Sund was arrested last year as well and spent 5 years in prison. And unfortunately, he's been in prison for quite a while and has apparently been released just recently. So the Pirate Bay is an entity which is very polarizing. Some people are very much against it. Other people are very much for it. I don't see any problem with it, really. It's just file sharing, and it's just another application of stuff that's been done for over 30 years. File sharing is nothing new. It's just that this facilitated it in a way that was not even new, is a funny thing. The way that the file sharing was done on the Pirate Bay is not new. It's been done before many, many times. It's just that it was the most high profile example of such. It's torrenting. Torrenting is nothing new. If you're at all familiar with file sharing, then you know what torrenting is. It's where you download a file and you're downloading this file from many different sources instead of just one. It's peer-to-peer. So you're downloading instead of from a central server, you're downloading from 10, 20, 100 different people all at the same time, which means you get really fast speeds. It's a great way of distribution. It's a great method for distribution, but it can also be used, of course, for copyrighted material, which is where the issue comes in, where people get very upset. I don't see it as a big deal, honestly. Other people do. I don't see it as a harm to the music industry either, because the music industry and the movie industry were two big entities, I should say, which were complaining about it. They actually saw boosted sales from people who pirated more than other people, so I really don't see an issue with it. It's one of those things where they are making a big deal out of what was really nothing as a method of a cash grab, more likely. You know, it's making an issue out of something which was a non-issue in an attempt at a cash grab, making more money off of something they were already making money off of, in this case, the movie industry. So it really was not a very big deal, but the movie industry and the music industry made it out to be the biggest thing ever, and it really wasn't. Well, anyway, there's an exoskeleton now for industrial workers that is the future, and Ars Technica actually got to try it out. Wearing Exobionics' forthcoming exoskeleton for construction and industrial workers is probably the closest that the writer of the article will ever come to having real physical superpowers. Through the magic of gravity and amazing industrial and mechanical design, a 40-pound industrial tool that the writer of the article was holding became totally weightless. After just a few minutes, he says, I quickly figured out that if I let the tool go, it would fly off into space, as if gravity had no effect on it at all. The ExoWorks suit is slated to hit the market in 2016 in the tens of thousands of dollars range. One financial analyst, Jeffrey Cohen, believes it'll be costing around $12,000. Exobionics hopes that within a few years, this suit will become a commonplace tool as other large tools that major construction firms will bring to a job site. If the company's projections are correct, the ExoWorks will set the company on the path to profitability, an exclusive, or rather elusive goal over the last decade, as we've been seeing an economic crisis that's been cruel, to say the least, to quite a few different startups. The exoskeleton is actually incredibly neat, according to the writer of the article. There are shoe-like platforms that fit beneath your shoes, and the co-founder and chief technology officer, Russ Angold, told the writer of the article that he was actually the first to wear the exoskeleton over a pair of Birkenstock sandals. As someone who works at home barefoot nearly every day, that is a footwear of the of the writer of the article's choice. Going up the legs were some large Velcro straps and bendable metal brackets following up the knees. There's a hinge that bends and allows you to jump as well. So at the right hip, it was a strange device where a large swing arm fit into a socket. At the business end of the arm was what appeared to be a 30 to 40 pound sander, as well as some other large power tool. So somebody who spends his day behind a computer screen, this is kind of a foreign concept. Manual labor is not something that I'm well suited to. If I were ever put on a construction site, I would probably lock myself in a barrel and wait for the day to be over. But nevertheless, I'm slightly capable of manual labor. And if an object such as this was available for someone like me, or were available for someone like me, I would be a much happier person. So manual labor is, again, not something that I'm very well suited to. That being the case, an exoskeleton such as this would allow rather physically unfit people to be manual laborers, right? I mean, this would allow even physically fit people to lift objects far beyond their own personal limits. Exoskeletons are going to be the future of construction if these trends continue. Unfortunately, exoskeletons are probably going to be the future of the military as well, because the military has been looking into exoskeletons for infantry, so we can expect to be seeing that as well as a more efficient way to kill people. That's what it's all about in the military, after all, is more efficient ways to kill people. How can we kill people? By spending as little money as possible. That's the military goal. So unfortunately, exoskeletons are probably going to be used in a military application as well. The FDA, in a show of power, is moving to regulate e-cigarettes and vaping. Unfortunately, citing the growing popularity of e-cigarettes, the Food and Drug Administration is now considering adding warning labels on liquid nicotine used in so-called electronic vaping devices, and is also mulling a requirement for the liquid to be sold in child-resistant packaging, so that you don't drink this stuff and die, I guess. The continuing rise in popularity of electronic nicotine devices, or ENDSs, such as e-cigarettes, which often use liquid nicotine and nicotine-containing e-liquids, has coincided with an increase in calls to poison control centers and visits to emergency rooms related to liquid nicotine poisoning and other nicotine exposure risks, the agency announced on Tuesday. The agency published its formal proposal in the Federal Register on Wednesday and provided the public 60 days to comment. But it might be some time for regulators to actually take place, or rather regulations to actually take place. That's because in April of 2014, the FDA proposed regulations preventing the nationwide sale of e-cigarettes and nicotine liquids to minors, adding warning labels to them regarding health risks associated with nicotine, in case you didn't already know, I guess. But no rules, which eventually could lead to restriction of television advertising, have yet been announced. You see, e-cigarettes are... Well, I can't make any medical claim regarding them because I'm not a medical professional, and there are conflicting claims about e-cigarettes, actually. But e-cigarettes are sometimes believed to be less harmful than cigarettes, and really it's up to the consumer anyway. That's kind of the thing. If I want to go out and buy cigarettes, I can do that because I'm over 18 by a few years now. I can do that. If you want to, you can as well, assuming you're over the age of 18, and you probably are going by statistics. And it's the same goes for e-cigarettes. So adding warning labels probably isn't going to solve much of any problems. It's just going to be another nanny state issue where they say, you know, we're doing our best to protect people by adding a little sticker onto nicotine, so that when you buy it, you know that you're at risk, as if like people didn't already know that. I'm actually surprised. I'm genuinely surprised there's not been some measure to require employees at gas stations to ask people who are buying cigarettes if they really know what they're doing. Do you really know what you're doing when you buy cigarettes? I'm surprised the FDA hasn't pushed some measure that gas station employees have to ask you that question before they hand over your cigarettes that you've paid for. You hand the clerk the money, and as per federal regulation, before he hands you your pack of 20 cigarettes, he says, do you really know the risks involved in taking this object? I'm surprised regulations such as those have not been put in place. But fortunately, they haven't yet, and probably actually more likely a subliminal message will be pushed across your Microsoft HoloLens telling you that cigarettes are harmful to your health. But that day is not yet here. Prominent medical groups wrote to the president 3 months ago urging the government to get going on the new rules, which also regulate cigars. Thanks a lot, guys. It's no wonder the use of e-cigarettes by youth has skyrocketed. This process has already taken far too long, saying, we cannot afford more delays that allow tobacco companies to target our kids with a new generation of tobacco products, stated a letter from nearly 3 dozen medical and health groups, including the American Heart Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics. Well, they keep pushing this narrative, too, that we can be the generation that ends smoking. And I can tell you firsthand that's not going to happen, because I smoke sometimes. I know people who do. We're not going to be the generation that ends it. There's probably not going to be any generation that ends smoking. It's a pipe dream by somebody who, I guess, hates big tobacco. I don't know. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. It's a show we talk about technology and more. And I'm very much opposed to regulation, be it government regulation, especially if it's government regulation. I'm very much opposed to that. Somebody else who is David Tools from Newgonomics.com, and his show is on right here on News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about the mob?
Arnie Guest Goldsmith
Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece. Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece to the perfect affordable handcrafted gem. From just $20 silver earrings to your dream elegant work of art to adorn your finger, neck, and wrists, impressing your friends and family, Arnie Guest Goldsmith will ensure that your budget is met. Planning the perfect wedding or a special event? Then let Arnie Guest Goldsmith assist you in choosing or designing the keepsake that will last you a lifetime. All of Arnie Guest Goldsmith repairs and crafting are done in-house, so you can be rest assured that it will meet or exceed your expectations. For over 30 years, Arnie Guest Goldsmith has served Chattanooga with the finest jewelry and services, meeting only the highest quality and standards. So the next time you think of jewelry, custom design, remounting, appraisals, or repairs, remember Arnie Guest Goldsmith. And please visit Arnie Guest Goldsmith at 5090 Adams Road, Hickson. That's 5090 Adams Road, Hickson. Call 875-2390. That's 875-2390. Or go to jewelryfromscratch.com. That's all one word, jewelryfromscratch.com. Jewelryfromscratch.com. Arnie Guest Goldsmith of Chattanooga.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured? Member of the working financially disadvantaged? Choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. Quick Surge. I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QUIKSURG. Relief.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont Pure in Rivermont, Chattanooga. Serving your vehicle needs for over 30 years.
Now that's a long time.
Owner-operators Charlie and Tommy always put your needs first. Yeah, go ahead. Get an estimate from one of those big guy impersonal car repair chains.
No way!
Then bring it to Tommy and Charlie at Rivermont Pure. Chances are they'll beat their price and get your vehicle back on the road faster than you can say,
our customers come first. Hi, this is Charlie.
And I'm Tommy, owners of Rivermont Pure. We're here to serve you.
Rivermont Pure, the auto repair guys. Featuring ethanol-free fuel. Located across from Rivermont Elementary on Hickson Pike. Rivermont, Chattanooga. Rivermont Pure.
Rivermont Pure, that's where I've always gone to get my car serviced. My husband and I trust Charlie and Tommy. They always treat us right and give us a fair price. And they get the job done right the first time. Thank you, Rivermont Pure.
Call 485-3375. That's 485-3375.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life. And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News. I'm Steve Kathan. It could take days to sort out, maybe longer, but lawmakers in South Carolina have begun debating the future of the Confederate flag. A bill would remove it from the state capitol grounds. Republican State Senator Larry Martin has voted before to preserve the flag, but says feelings are different now in the wake of the Charleston church shootings.
It is part of our history. It needs to be respected But as far as this state, on this state house grounds, it isn't part of our future.
CBS's Omar Villafranca is in Colombia.
People have mixed feelings about it. Some people say it's heritage, not hate. And other groups are saying, listen, this reminds us of the 60s. This reminds us of segregation. We want this down.
There's a scramble in Europe in the wake of yesterday's referendum in Greece. Reporter Terry Schultz is in Brussels.
European Commission Vice President Valdis Dombrovskis says negotiations between Athens and its Eurozone partners would have been much easier had Greek voters said yes Sunday, indicating a willingness to accept more budget cuts in exchange for more bailout money. As it stands after the no vote, though, Dombrovskis says
the gap between Greece and the rest of the Eurozone is widening.
That's true not just about financial well-being, but also goodwill. Eurozone leaders meet Tuesday to debate, among other questions, whether they're even willing to continue funding a country that won't accept the rules other bailout recipients have had to follow. Terry Schultz for CBS News, Brussels.
Activists in Syria say at least 37 ISIS fighters have been killed in the latest string of stepped-up coalition airstrikes in and around a city that's been a terrorist stronghold. Defense Secretary Carter says increased Kurdish military activity has prompted the increased U.S.-led air support.
The effective action on the ground of Kurdish forces gives us the opportunity to support them tactically.
Diplomats in Vienna working against a deadline tomorrow to strike a nuclear deal with Iran. Ben Cardin, top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, says any accord will have to meet expectations in Congress.
The bottom line is that this agreement must prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear weapons state.
Pope Francis is in Ecuador, where 1 million people have filled a park for a mass. CBS's Anna Matranga is covering.
In the homily that he will give during the Mass, the Pope will speak about the value of the family. After the Mass, he'll be going to a Jesuit school nearby where he's going to spend time with an old friend of his, a 90-year-old Jesuit priest named Father Paquito. After that, he'll return to Quito for a courtesy visit with the president of Ecuador.
Southwest Airlines says a flight from Denver to L.A. returned to the airport shortly after takeoff today because of apparent